Whether you're a buyer, a seller, or a real estate agent, and you've been hiding under a rock, well, there are some changes coming your way with the new contract. Changes. Hello everybody, my name is Barry Horvath and this is Moving Forward TV with your local market update.
And I am DeLynn Gaston. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very, very, very excited to have a guest with us.
Yes,
Yay.
we do. We have a very special guest indeed. You know, we have one of the most respected real estate professionals right here in our community.
Yes, sirree.
We have Miss Connie Luco with RE/MAX Sunset. So welcome to the show, Connie. Glad you could join us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Connie, we have so much going on in the real estate world. Not only is it a crazy market, not only is there this frenzy,
to say the least, right?
Yeah, I mean, is this not the weirdest time ever
Yes.
that you have seen and I know we've been doing this for a week or two now, but this is the weirdest time ever in any real estate market we've experienced, because we've been through, you know, the 2008s and,
right.
and we've been through we just talked about the Dodd-Frank law when that came into place. We've been through the high interest rate markets. We've been through it all. But, you know, let's throw in something new in a crazy time. Like, let's just come up with a way to change the contract. So if you've been hiding under a rock, and you don't know about the new real estate contract that was effective November 1st, and you're going to all see them. We brought Connie in to talk about it because clearly we don't know about real estate, and we got to rely on the professionals like Connie to help us through. We got to navigate through this thing because there's some things in there that are going to affect all of us. So,
you know, and it's not just the changes and everything, but just in general, you know, I think there's a lot, you know, there's a lot in the contract. It's 12 pages long. Yeah. So there's a lot in a contract anyway before all of the changes and such. And there was a lot of things that I think a lot of people, lenders and some realtors alike, weren't understanding anyway. You know, there were some things, and all of a sudden something will come up and you go, really? I never noticed that in the contract, right? Guilty. I've definitely done that.
And I know, Connie, you've been through some training on this, so we're leaning on you to help guide us through. But I know specifically there's some changes that are going to really affect the buyer's side more so than the seller's side. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
in which case, I'm going to say, like, kind of like right up front to the audience in general.
I'm afraid.
This is a two-part show. I'll tell you right now, there are so many changes that we are going to do a two-part show. So this is going to be part one of a series of two, maybe more, depends upon how we get through this.
This is going to be the novel of the new contract, okay? So let's get right into it of what is, you know, because we can't cover it all today, DeLynn, like you said. And I know Connie has a listing appointment coming up today, so she probably doesn't want to miss that and spend all day. So we're just going to give you some brief highlights that really can affect, really on the lending side, I think will be the big meat and potatoes for us today.
Right.
So, Connie, what do you want to tell us about the new contract, first of all? How do you feel about this thing? You can be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm going to refer to the lender a lot.
Right.
It's confusing. There's some stuff in here that is going to make it difficult. We have always preached when you're extending a contract, you need to extend the loan approval time. And I think these changes if you have never done that or don't know how to do that, you need to do that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the main.
So, and just to be clear, because we have a lot of first-time buyers, and let's face it, it's pretty overwhelming for a first-time buyer. I know you've navigated through and held their hand all through the process. Specifically, if we can get a contract extension, but what you're saying is you better get a lender approval extension to go with it to protect your buyer. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So there's some things in the new contract, certain sections. All about Section 8 is loan, the financing terms in the contract. I don't know what page it's on, but
and that's kind of where we're going to start.
Is all the financing detail of the contract. So when you're looking at that, you want to pay close attention to what is loan approval now.
Right.
They are saying it is now after appraisal is done. So that's going to change. And you know the way appraisals are, from the lending side.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And they're tough to get.
Yeah.
Well,
We are understaffed appraiser-wise, and we've said that for weeks,
what
months.
she's speaking of specifically is they call it paragraph 8, it looks like, in the contents.
8B.
So.
It used to be on page 3. I think it still is, right? It probably
the
is still
financing is
on
towards the
page 3.
So,
All right, so let's go into, Connie has a PowerPoint, yay! So that we can kind of like break some of this stuff down. So let's see if we can pull that up.
So
Here we go. So this is all the changes.
Correct.
so it looks super
Ta-da!
easy.
Yeah, right? There you go.
So, Connie, when you came on, you said, I'm glad I'm not on the lending side. Well, I'm looking at that, and I'm going to say to you, I'm glad I'm not in the real estate side. I'm going to leave that to you professionals.
Yeah, I know. That's just the stuff affected.
That looks really good, Barry and DeLynn, but the revised contract is the as-is contract that we use here all the time. And that is just one bullet point. So
I know, right?
It didn't break down all of that in there. So that's where the as-is contract is really goes into detail. Like Barry and DeLynn said, we're not going to get to it all today.
No way. That's a lot of stuff. All right, but let's go right to it. So the next slide, we're going to jump right to the financing section. If you can put that up.
Because that's everybody's favorite section.
Yes.
Show us the money there, Rob. There we go.
So this paragraph, they've taken a lot out.
Yeah, it looks like they left like 2 words.
They did. And all this is now is your buyer will pay cash and there's no financing contingencies. So what used to be included after the buyer will pay cash or purchase, all that is gone. So they've deleted a reference to any lender requirements. It is strictly just cash. That one's easy.
That one's easy. All right. Let's roll on to the next one.
Ooh.
All right. So this one.
So you might, so this is 8B. This is the actual financing section. If you skip to the next slide, you're going to see where they took out wording and put in the wording.
Oh, there we go.
So
Okay.
this is the contract is contingent upon if left blank 30 days after the effective date, which is the loan approval
And that's always
period.
been there.
That's always, well,
They worded it a little differently. That's why it's red.
yeah,
Okay,
they pushed
gotcha.
it up to the top because it used to be after.
So,
Okay.
can I ask a question about that? So,
Sure.
if the agent writes in, say, 45 days, so then the entire lender approval and contract extend in that paragraph for 45 days?
Yes, originally, if we put 45 days in there, that gives the lender the 45 days
Okay.
needed for the contract.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
And DeLynn and Barry are probably saying, could you put 55 after all these changes? But anyhow.
You know us, huh?
So the 45 days, agents, we like to give you guys the 30 days. And,
Yeah.
Because it's busy out there, and they want the sellers want 30-day contracts. So
I know. Everybody wants to close quickly, and we get that. Everybody wants to close quickly. The problem is that there's just so much that's out of our control.
Yeah, it is. The appraisals are taking 14 days. you know.
And wait until tax time comes. We're not going to get 4506s back. You know, the IRS verifications, we're not going to get those back timely. During tax season, forget it. It takes a while. Yeah. And those are things that are out of our control.
They are.
And the thing that makes me nervous about all of that, kind of like we were talking about before, the buyer's EMD is at stake. Yeah. And that's why you're saying they've got to do loan approval extensions.
And you know this, Connie. I mean, you have the buyer's best interest when you are the buyer's agent. And we do too. And we don't want the buyer to go through this process. And, you know, let's just say you write a 30-day contract. And let's just say, for some reason, the lender doesn't get the contract for, I don't know, 3 to 5 days later. Now all of a sudden we got 25 days. And then all of a sudden, oh, Thanksgiving's here and Veterans Day's here. And we have 2 holidays in there. Now all of a sudden we got 23 days. Yeah. And let's just say there's a glitch with getting insurance, you know, because that never happens. And the inspections are always perfect.
Absolutely.
And when the appraiser goes out, you know, we want to protect the buyer, and I understand the seller wants, and it's a seller's market, and they want it. But we don't want our buyer to get on the 31st day and all of a sudden be out of contract, and then they can't close.
Absolutely. Well, for the agents out there, you know that when we put in a date, everybody is expecting to close on that date. Right. They've got it in their mind. They back up when they need to pack. They're moving. They're excited. Yes. They want in the house. But I will tell you, there are new laws in this contract. For one, we were discussing earlier, appraiser, that has to be part of the loan approval process now. So we all know
not just that it's ordered, but that it's back.
Correct. It has to be back and be justified. So there are things in place that we're going to have no control over.
And I guess I understand the why behind that part of it, to tell you the truth, because a lot of times with the appraisals coming in lower, it's being renegotiated at the last minute.
It's a guessing game up until the last minute.
So I understand that, but, you know, I don't know. I just think that...
Do you think it could be partly due to, because sometimes we're getting the appraisal waivers on these?
I'm hoping we get a lot more appraisal waivers. That's the only thing that's going to protect, I think. That's the only thing that's going to protect the buyer.
Which, for those you don't know, you know, we run automated underwriter findings as a lender, as every lender has to. Sometimes if we have what I'd call a viable buyer with this, but we've gotten them at 95%, so it has nothing to do with down payment. It really has a lot to do with the zip code of the property
I think it does too.
Because certain markets they feel are safe and stable. And
mind you,
it'll
this is
waive
nothing
that appraisal requirement.
And we don't have anything to do with that. You know, we put it into the automated underwriting system. This is basically just Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac saying, yep, we agree with that value, we're good with it. And then no appraisal is required. But we never know when that's going to happen and when it's not going to happen.
You know where it never happens? And Connie, you're not going to want to hear it. Spring Hill. We rarely ever see an appraisal waiver in Spring Hill. And I don't know if it was the sinkhole
We used to think it was like, oh, they're putting 30% down. Of course we're going to get an appraisal waiver. It's not.
a zip code.
Well, we know from experience that we had one, and then the person decided not to put that much money down, and then it had to go for appraisal at the end. So it can happen. Can happen a lot of different ways. There is something in the new contract that does state that it is however the evaluation is done. It doesn't necessarily have to be an approval now.
Okay.
They say that it's an alternate evaluation. So
that's an appraisal waiver.
Sufficient to support the loan. So that is in the contract.
Okay.
8B.
Right here on the board.
Oh, okay, this one up here. Okay, good.
2 tasks to be completed within the loan approval period is financing is approved and the lender's receipt of appraisal or an evaluation
alternative
sufficient to
evaluation.
Supporting the loan.
Right.
So that's where that would come into play.
Okay.
So absolutely.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the appraisal, but any way that it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it says some lenders don't require appraisals. Well.
Correct.
Yeah. Got it.
So they've kind of filled that void with
Right.
not needing an
Well,
appraisal.
it all makes sense
Yep.
now. You connected the
Yeah,
dots.
so here it is, on the next page there. Some lenders don't require appraisals, some lenders
Correct.
for some loans accept a
All right,
different
so-
valuation product.
So what I'm hearing, based on paragraph 8B, is that now, if you do a 30-day contract, and the lender does not have the approval back from underwriting, the buyer is in jeopardy of losing their earnest money deposit. Is that correct?
If they don't extend the closing date
Okay.
or extend the loan approval time.
Okay.
Both of them are going to have to go hand in hand. You're going to have to extend them.
Okay, all right.
And that would allow and to agents, we fight this all the time. Every time you go back for a loan extension, you have a chance of deadening that deal
Right.
with the seller, because they could get a cash buyer
Right.
that came in after they took yours, and now they have a contract.
See, I didn't realize,
So-
I never realized that until you just told me that today.
Well, we
that
can
they
take
can,
backups.
yeah, and they can just say,
So-
nope, I'm not extending it, and
And take the
meanwhile, the
backup offer.
buyer,
And-
meanwhile, the
Yeah.
buyer has spent money on an appraisal, spent money on
Inspections.
Correct.
Yep.
inspections and everything else.
And we
we're-
lived with them for the last 29
you know,
days.
yeah, 3 weeks into the whole transaction.
But they can't, the
That's
seller
horrible.
can't cancel before then.
The seller can't really cancel before that.
Right.
If they get loan approval and it's the process of it,
Right.
then there's no reason to cancel
So-
it.
But he could say, no, I'm not extending it, cancel the
3 days
contract.
after
And
that
hence why it's so critical that you get an accurate closing date, like you said earlier.
front.
Because you want to protect that buyer. You want to make sure, people say, oh, we can always extend it. Well, what if, right?
True. There's always
So they
that what
can-
if in our business.
So in this new contract, correct me if I'm wrong, are you saying they can let's just say they have a backup. And let's just say 31 days comes and the appraiser, for some reason, doesn't get the appraisal back on time. Now they're out of contract,
Correct.
okay?
Out of contract.
Now the buyer can lose their escrow deposit and the seller.
house.
And the house, and the seller can sell it to the cash backup buyer. Is that correct?
They can do anything they want
Wow.
at that time. If the contract is out of date and you have not extended it as an agent, and you have not extended that loan approval time,
Right.
the seller has that 3-day period
Okay.
to let you know they're walking. It had always been in the contract that way,
Right.
that they had an option to get out, or now there's also something in the contract in Section 8 that says, if the buyer wants to proceed and feels that they have the loan, they feel like they have the loan socked in, or whatever you want to call it, that they can proceed at their own discretion.
But if they don't close, they
Then
lose their earnest money deposit.
Absolutely, because it's saying then they would become a cash buyer at that point.
They
I
would
see.
become a cash buyer
Right.
at
But
that
if
point.
you, as an agent, want to protect your buyer, you extend not only the closing date, but the financing date.
Correct.
Boom.
And we've always have stated that.
Right.
Because you should be doing that, but we used to go to the lender, and because the CD had to go out 3 days, and
Right.
the title company is supposed to give you the documents 48 hours in advance. For agents out there, that we are getting
She
them
laughs
at
as
the
she
table.
says that.
When
We're
does that
getting them to
happen?
review at the table most of the time. But if you think about it, all that backs up 5 days. So the loan approval should already be, when the CD, they should be approved.
Okay.
Appraisal should be back by that point, because then, we used to say you can back up the loan approval time and then extend the closing time for
Okay.
5 days out.
Okay.
I would do, my own personal opinion, and what I will do is keep them running simultaneously, because you
Right.
just
That
don't
makes
know
sense.
these days. Yeah.
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 But now, if you're on, let's just, we're the other side, you're the listing agent, what do? That's...
I had a buyer recently, and you guys held the loan, were the lender on it at the mortgage firm, and the seller didn't want to extend it, and they were going about over how much money they wanted to make on it. The appraisal came in low, and the seller was going to walk. At that point, we needed to extend it. We needed to justify the appraisal coming in lower, and in the negotiation process, we had to extend it. And they were going to walk because they had backup offers that were cash.
Wow.
And we had went through the process for 30 days already.
Right.
But they can close the cash quick now in a couple of weeks, and they were ready to do that.
Wow.
So you got to do your diligence for the buyers with these contracts. And
Right.
you got to read, if you don't know what, I mean, NAR has it on their website. That's the printout we're looking at today.
That was the link that he had up on the prior page.
So make sure you do your due diligence and look at what changes come about.
So this has really put a lot of pressure on the lenders, but ultimately on the appraisal.
No pressure on us now.
No pressure on the agents, lenders, title companies.
And ultimately on the appraisers. This is crazy for the appraisers because
and we don't have enough out there.
And you're really big on education, and we serve on the education committee together at the West Pascagoula Realtors. So, from a teaching standpoint, to teach the other agents out there, would you be recommending put longer time frames on the loan approval, as long as you can get it? Because sometimes, like the one that I was telling you about that I got this morning, and they basically said that we had to put some crazy short deadlines on here in order to win the bid.
And that's true.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
We're going to fight that because agents are going to push. Because we want what our seller and buyers want out there, and they're going to take contracts that are less days, and they want a quick close, and they're going to take cash buyers.
But let me ask you this. Have you, and I know this never happens, but sometimes when I usually say that, it means it does.
It
does. You haven't picked up on my sarcasm yet. But a lot of, I don't want to call them unscrupulous agents, will do that knowing that the buyer getting a lender can't perform. I mean, am I wrong?
I'm not going to answer.
I was just going to say, look at that face.
It's like,
I am not going to answer that question.
So, and it's wrong, and I'm going to tell you, I went through another lender, okay, because we didn't do
You went
what
through
I
another lender?
And I'm going to tell you, I'll say it because it was something we didn't do, okay?
Okay, so you went to somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
It took 4 months. 4 months.
Well, those difficult loans do take several months. People don't realize
But
that.
I'm just saying, but they told me that was normal. They said that is normal process for us. And I'm like, what, 4 months? But, if you want to get that amazing rate, so you got to wait for it.
Right now in this market, people want in the homes, and it's I say it's a seller's market, but it's also a buyer's market because the interest rates are so low.
Yes.
Right. It is.
And it's,
you're right.
I tell them it's almost free money at this point. Remember the day when they were 11 and 12 and 18 and higher. So it's still a buyer's market out there just as well as it is a seller. But the seller is getting multiple offers within the first day on these homes. And they're looking at each individual. And if the agent is doing their due diligence, putting all of the lines in a row so they can see what contracts they got, a lot of them may choose the shorter days to get out. Not to say that there's people out there that are buying houses right now and they're glad to get the cash to go buy another house right now. And it's coming down to, we had I printed the report for my listing that we had 304 cash offers in October.
Wow.
Compared to 200 and some last year in October. So people are out there paying cash. That will make
Which is really dumb, quite frankly.
But this loan approval, they're going to start wanting the cash over
Of
the
course.
loan, the lender.
Of course.
So,
Because they're afraid it's not going to appraise and blah, blah, blah.
right.
You know
So
what?
I guess that's to help it when they
Sure.
say get the appraisal up front.
Right.
Because it is a guessing game for us agents,
It
all,
is.
and you as a lender, all the
Yep.
way until the end.
Right.
So.
Yep,
Right.
it is. That's why I said I totally understand that they're going to want the appraisals ahead of time, and I get that. But it really puts a ton of pressure on the lender and the appraisers. You know, and again, I feel bad because it's the buyer who's going to end up losing. You know,
Just don't let them lose their money.
Right.
don't let them.
Your due
Yes,
diligence.
And we're
get
seeing-
get those extensions. And you guys are going to be writing a lot of extensions. So you as an agent, and you, I know you do both buyers and sellers. You know, you list a lot of homes as well. So will you be kind of like? Should I say if you're representing the seller and you accept a contract from a buyer, are you going to pretty much educate your seller to they may want an extension because you do a lot of buyers as well.
Right.
So
I will talk to both sides on that, absolutely. Buyers are going to have to know that they may need extensions the way the new contract reads. Hopefully you get with your lender, you have a good team of lenders, title companies,
right.
Insurance people. It takes a good team now.
It takes a village, doesn't it?
It does.
It does take a
Can I
village.
ask you,
Good ones, so.
back on the contract, because
Sure.
we're almost out of time, real quick. This paragraph 8B2, okay? It talks
8B2.
about keeping the
8B2.
Yeah, it
Rob.
says buyer shall,
Thank you.
upon written request, keep seller and buyer fully informed about the status of a buyer's mortgage loan application.
Yep.
It crosses out loan approval.
So,
What
Yeah,
does
that's
that
dumb.
mean?
well, I don't probably think that you can discuss with the seller wanting information on the buyer other
Right.
than you have, you can't go into more detail. You never could.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. It adds it a little bit
But
further down, though.
It says new item, seller must make written request to buyer for status updates.
Right.
So that is a new change. They
Right.
have to in writing, and then notification of property related conditions of the loan approval.
Now, do you
So
think where it says seller must make written request to buyer, that would be seller's agent?
I'm assuming because I don't think the seller would talk to you guys or
Yeah.
the
Right.
buyer.
Although
Most of
we've
the
had
time they
sellers
don't.
call the office and say,
Oh,
what's going
sometimes.
on with their
Yeah.
loan? And we're like,
Yeah, we have.
Well,
Can I talk to you? I don't think I
lenders call
can.
sellers and buyers
I
out
know.
there.
Yeah.
So trying to get we have a good a good buyer. We want you to accept their offer. So.
one day we just mess
Notification.
with that seller and go, that buyer? Oh my gosh, that file's a mess. I would.
know.
I'm just kidding.
You
We
know,
would
look,
never say
we're down to like 30 seconds here, and I got and we only got to like 2 slides.
that.
So
But that's, hey, Connie, thank you.
Thank you.
We need to bring you back on
part 2
again.
coming up in a minute.
And talk more about this contract. So there's so much information out there, and I know this community respects your knowledge and wisdom, and thank you for your heart of caring and sharing your education with our real estate professional friends out there. So
Say goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
yep. All right.
Bye,
Share
everybody.
the show, like it. I don't know how you found us, but thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.